Hello once again, I'm Matt Donnelly, and the one question on every fantasy football manager's mind as we head into week 1 of the NFL season has to be, which DSTs are worthy of being dropped into your starting lineups? Luckily, here at RotoBaller, we got you covered with 5 defenses that fantasy managers should feel pretty good about starting as they kickstart those fantasy football championship aspirations. The first start this week, and a must start not only this week, but pretty much every single week, it is the Denver Broncos. This week, they're taking on the Tennessee Titans. It doesn't even matter who they're taking on. When you are the only team to average more than 10 fantasy points per week last season, you move into must-start status. And as good as the Denver Broncos were last season, they've gotten even better heading into the 2025 season with the offseason additions of Drew Greenlaw, DJ Jones, Talent Hufanga there, not to mention the return of Captain Caveman himself, Alex Singleton. How good were the Broncos a season ago? Denver yielded the 7th fewest yards per game and the 3rd fewest points per game, while also ranking inside the top 8 in both fumbles recovered and interceptions. Perhaps the biggest allure to this whole Denver defense, it comes up front where the Broncos had 65 sacks in 18 contests. Not only did they lead the league, but they did so by a wide margin as the Ravens were the next closest team with 59. More impressive yet, it was a race to the quarterback with each and every snap as Nick Bonito led the charge with 13.5 sacks. That was the 3rd most in the NFL, followed by Jonathan Cooper's 10.5 and Zach Allen's 8.5. Denver, they also had 3 other players contribute with at least 5 sacks. The Titans, they sport a new look offense. They got a fancy little play there at the quarterback position, but Cam Ward is still a rookie quarterback making his first NFL start behind an offensive line that conceded 52 sacks last season and returned only 3 starters from that starting 5 from a season ago. The next start we got this week, how about the Houston Texans versus the Los Angeles Rams? Houston, we have a problem, and it's the fact that not only has Matthew Stafford been dealing with a back issue much of the offseason, but his most trusted protection there, the guy assigned to protect his backside from the likes of Donnelly Hunter and Will Anderson, Alric Jackson, he has been dealing with his own medical issues throughout camp and has missed lots of time himself. Don't sleep on this Texans defense. They're not that sexy name that everybody's talking about. They might not even be a streaming option for many people, but there is a good reason why the Texans were the 5th highest scoring defense for fantasy last season, and I don't think enough people are going to talk about it, so we're going to talk about it. That's what we do here. Houston has one of the better front and back end connections there as Derek Stingley and Callan Bullock. They each had 5 interceptions last year, helping the Texans produce 19 interceptions and a total of 29 turnovers, which was the 5th most in the NFL. Meanwhile, Hunter's 12 sacks, that was the 5th most in the NFL, while Will Anderson was right behind him with 11 of his own, pushing the Texans total to 56, which was the 4th most. You got sacks, you got turnovers. What more could you want, especially when you're facing a Los Angeles Rams team that has a quarterback who's dealing with an injury and a left tackle that is less than 100% himself? Need another start? How about the Pittsburgh Steelers as they head on to play the New York Jets? Anytime you have a J.J. Watt in your lineup, your defense is at worst a streaming option regardless of the matchup. Watt and the Steelers will be chasing a moving target in Jets quarterback Justin Fields, who spent the 2024 season in Pittsburgh, so you have to believe that this defense has a pretty good book on what Justin Fields is capable of doing and what he has to offer this Jets offense. And by all accounts, this Jets offense has yet to take off this offseason here if we were to believe any of the training camp reports that we've heard so far. Pittsburgh, they should have very few concerns regarding this Jets passing attack with the offseason additions that they had with Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay joining Joey Porter Jr. on that back end in the secondary. With no real threat of a passing attack, the Steelers will be keying on that run, and is one of the reasons that the current over-under when we talk about points is set at 38.5. New York's offense was the 9th worst in terms of total offense last season and was 25th in points scored, while the Steelers, they were the 8th stingiest defensive unit when it came to points against, thanks to 17 interceptions, 16 fumble recoveries, and 33 turnovers forced, which tied the Minnesota Vikings for the most in the National Football League. Looking for an early season streaming option? Look no further than the Arizona Cardinals as they face off against Spencer Rattler and the New Orleans Saints. With Spencer Rattler era on the horizon there in the Bayou, let's take a look at the body of work that he's already put out there. In 7 contests, not starts, in 7 contests in which he has played, he's completed 130 of 228 passing attempts, averaging 188.1 passing yards per contest. Rather, he's also tossed 4 touchdowns, but he's turned the ball over himself 5 times and fumbled the ball on a separate occasion. The most damning evidence that we have against Rather, which also is one of the better reasons why we go with the Arizona Cardinals this week, is that the Saints quarterback in those 7 contests was sacked 22 times. Yes, you heard that right, 22 times. As for the Cardinals, Arizona's 41 sacks, that ranked right in the middle of the pack, so they identified this as a need, and they brought back a familiar face in Calais Campbell, who, despite his age, has produced 5 or more sacks in each of the last 3 seasons, and his 110 over his 17-year career, well, that's just bonus. They also added Josh Sweat there, who comes to the desert here after 7 years in Philadelphia, where he himself has registered 6 or more sacks in 5 consecutive seasons. Hey, sorry Spencer Rattler, he's probably going to be on the ground more often than not this week. How about one more for the road? How about those who are looking for another streaming option? May I interest you in the Washington Commanders as they take on their division rival, the New York Giants? New York may be entering this contest with their most prolific weapon on offense at less than 100%, as Malik Nabers hasn't participated much over the last couple weeks as he has been dealing with a toe injury. Between the injury and the lack of reps this offseason, Nabers may be a little bit slow getting out of the gate for the 2025 season. Further complicating matters is that there's this dude on the other sideline named Marshawn Lattimore who's likely going to draw the assignment of Malik Nabers. And you know what? Even at 29 years of age, ask Mike Evans, Lattimore, when healthy, he can still lock down opposing wide receivers. While Washington only produced 17 turnovers last season, they still managed to finish inside the top 10 in sacks with 48. Looking to get even more pressure on the opposing quarterback, the Commanders added Javon Kinlaw along that interior of the defensive line and brought in veteran edge rushers Dedrick Wise Jr. and Von Miller. That's it for this week's Sits, and if you haven't already done so, hit those like and follow buttons, and be sure to head to RotoBaller.com for all the latest fantasy news and analysis. And guess what? Hey, hope to see you next time.